Hey, it's Ryan from Ryonet. Today we're going to be showing a simulated process print. This is a 5-color simulated process print, white underbase, 3 colors, and then a white top. So we have 1 flash in that print. We're going to be using the Smiling Jack Squeegee and the Dr. J Squeegee. Now we're going to be using the same squeegee in one print. We're actually going to be using this squeegee as a flood bar. I'll explain why in a second. Now we're first going to show you how a traditional printer would set this print up. Now, a lot of times what printers are going to need to do is they're going to need to lower their angle for their white underbase. Why do they do that? They do that to increase the ink flow. They do that to let more ink down. But if you lower your angle too much, what happens is your blade starts to buckle, then your image becomes saturated, you lose your detail, you put more pressure down on your screen, so there's a very fine line there. And typically, even with lowering your angle, you have to complete it with 2 strokes. So when you're, every single time your press has to complete that second stroke, you're really slowing your production down by 50% because instead of moving to the next station, you're doing 2 strokes. So we have this underbase set up for our first print, and this white underbase is a 2-stroke underbase. We're using a 70 durometer blade, which is a fairly standard blade. Actually, this is a triple, so this is a lot of customers to accomplish a thicker or a stronger squeegee. They'll put a triple blade in, meaning that has a softer edge to lay a little bit more ink down, but a hard middle durometer. And what that accomplishes is that will actually make that blade a little stiffer, so it has less deflection even though they're putting more pressure down. So we're using a triple durometer blade. It's a 70, 90, 70, I believe, or 75, 95, 75, one of those two, to accomplish this print. And the way it's set up is we're going to flood, print, flash, print. So now let's make our white underbase print and see how it looks. So that was with 2 prints, and we're going to go ahead and save this so we can do some comparison after we're done here. So I have some residue from my hands down there from gloves, but you can see it's pretty transparent. It almost looks like it's gray. So let's go ahead and print the underbase. We'll flash it, and then we'll accomplish the rest of the print. Once we're again, we're going 2 passes with a pretty slow stroke. Clears the screen just fine. And we have a decent underbase. We'll go ahead and flash that. And then we'll send the rest of the print around through rotation. Okay, you don't have to film this. Now let's send it around and put the rest of the colors on top of it in the highlight white. Now while we're doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and swap out the blade. So we're going to take out this squeegee blade and we're going to pop in the Smiling Jack blade. So what the Smiling Jack blade does is it allows us to run straight up and down. As you can see right here, we're set at about, I don't know, 75-degree angle or so. So running straight up and down allows the pressure to be focused straight down, and the blade will not deflect because that pressure is focusing down 100%. 6 o'clock on the bottom, 12 o'clock at the top. Now, because this blade is bent, we have to go with that thicker durometer because that pressure starts to deflect the blade. So what we hope to do is run this straight up and down with less pressure, speed up our squeegees, and only run 1 hit versus 2 hits, and get a much better result. Here's the final result. Pretty good looking print, but let's see how it looks once we pop the right blades in. Okay, we're going to throw another curveball in here, change things up a bit. Normally, a screen printer will use a standard flood bar, an aluminum flood bar, to flood the ink up, and then a squeegee to print the ink back. We're going to take the flood bar out, and what Joe's basically set up with the Dr. J is a dual squeegee system. The Dr. J to load the ink. Now the 2 smiles are going to be facing both out, and you know they're smiling when they're in the right way, right? Because they're smiling face up. You don't want them upside down. They don't want them frowning. They're going to be facing out. The beveled edge of this blade's on the inside for the stroke back. The beveled edge on the flood is on the outside to flood up. So we're going to load the screen with ink, and then we're going to print it back. Now, if we want less ink on the flood, we can turn it around like that. If we want less ink on the print, higher mesh, more detail, more halftones, we can turn this around. So you can run either one either way. This can also be used for an overprint, which we'll show in a second. But right now, we're going to be using it as the flood bar. The flood bar is already in, and the squeegee we're going to pop in right now. Now, these are also running at much lower angles like discussed earlier. We're going to be running the squeegee at we're going to start out at 0, and we might bring it up to maybe 5. So I think we'll start out at 5, and then we can always increase the angle. But you're pretty much running it straight up and down versus, 70, a little bit lower angle like that, 15, 20 degrees. All right, we got it locked into place, and then we're going to lower the angle here. So I'm going to offset that just slightly. Now we want to set our pressure to about 50 psi, and then we want to put a lot more pressure. We've already got the back flood bar loaded, so we do want to put a lot more pressure on the back. So we're going to go ahead and bring the pressure down on the squeegee flood bar. And one advantage of that squeegee flood bar is that, with a metal flood bar, if you push it too hard on the mesh, it's going to pop the mesh. But the squeegee, because it's polyurethane, you have much less risk of popping the mesh. So you can put more ink in the screen, keep that detail without having to worry about popping the mesh. So I'm going to bring this down so that it's pushing with a pretty good amount of pressure into the mesh here. And then that will preload the screen. You don't want to actually print the shirt, obviously, but you just want to preload the screen. Now, another thing that we've done is we make sure that we have enough off contact. If we don't have enough off contact, that screen is not going to clear the ink out of it. So we're going to go ahead and put the tables up, and we're measuring our off contact. Now, right now we have about 3/8 of an inch of off contact, and that should be enough to clear these screens. We're all printing this design with 230 mesh screens. With the white ink, you definitely need that off contact. If you have problems with the ink clearing out of your screen, a lot of times people just throw more pressure on it, but if there's no space for that screen to release the ink onto the substrate, then the extra pressure is not going to do anything. So raising the off contact or lowering the off contact to create more distance is what you actually need. All right, so we'll run a test print on this guy, make sure we're set up right, and then we'll dial it in from there. Okay, so now we have the Dr. J set, 0 degrees. We do put a lot of pressure on that, so it definitely floods the ink into the screen. You don't want the squeegee flooding up over the ink. You want it pushing into the screen mesh and then putting ink, loading the mesh, so the mesh actually receives the ink, and the ink starts to curl around the hinges of the mesh. Also, we have the Smiling Jack sitting at about 2 degrees and then 50 pounds of pressure. We've done some testing to make sure it clears the screen. We actually did tweak the angle a little bit. It was at 5 degrees. We brought it back up to it's almost at 0 degrees. Then we'll go ahead and do our print. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drop this down and accomplish this in 1 print versus 2. So I'm going to go to my options, change that to 1 print, and then go to print. So we're loading the screen very nicely here. All right, so we got this set to 1 print stroke now. We've done some testing. We got a good amount of pressure on our Dr. J with the flood up, so pretty much preloading that mesh. And we're going to straight up and down on our Smiling Jack with about 50 pounds of pressure. So we'll do our base print. We'll check that out. We'll flash it, and we'll do the colors, and we'll do some side-by-side comparisons. Now keep in mind this is an underbase, so this is not it's supposed to be a bright white print. This is our original underbase. This was with 2 passes using that triple blade. This is our current underbase. This is just 1 pass. So we're going twice as fast. This one is already a lot brighter. So let's see how the final print looks with all the colors on top of them. Here's our original print with 2 passes on the underbase. Here's our new print with 2 passes on the underbase. As you can see, you got a lot brighter colors. A lot brighter colors in the pumpkins down here. A lot brighter colors in the moon. Great text. See it side by side once again. A lot brighter blue through the scape right there. And everything else was the same other than the change of the squeegee on the underbase. Now we're going to show you flash print printing through this 230 mesh screen. This is a simulated process underbase, typically not meant for a bright white, but we'll show you by using the Dr. Jack and Smiling J, the Smiling J to print, the Dr. Jack to load. It's going to accomplish a really impressive, nice bright print that could pass for a traditional white. So we're going to make our first print. As you can see, that loads the screen nicely. And there's our underbase. So if you want to take a shot of that underbase real fast, I'll move it right over here. See that? Nice bright underbase. Okay, here's our second print. So these are both single stroke prints after the flash. There we go, the screen clears beautifully. And let's check out this nice bright white ink. That's through a 230 mesh screen too. 230 mesh screen, single stroke each time. So great white ink. That's using the Ryonet white ink, the Dr. J Squeegee to flood the screen, and the Smiling Jack to print. If you want to step up your game, whether it be in high detail printing or just nice bright white prints, simulated process, 4-color process, check out the Smiling J and the Dr. Jack Squeegees for automatic presses, available at silkscreenandsupplies.com, and check out more information on our YouTube website, youtube.com/Ryonet. Thank you very much for watching this video, and have a great day.